Joblessness has hit young Canadians like a freight train.
Maybe we're the lost generation.
We haven't seen anything like this in almost 100 years.
It is a sorry puzzle in 3 parts: business, government, and education.
Canada is the only country in the world without a National Ministry of Education, and it shows.
Other countries have the answer.
It's no problem finding a job after university.
What's our problem?
We need to stop funneling so many students through this program that leaves them with debt and unemployment on the other side.
I'm Anne-Marie McDonald. This Doc Zone is Generation Jobless. This year, 254,000 young men and women will graduate from Canadian universities, ready to conquer the world, or at least take their place in it.
Today, I can confidently say that we are ready.
But are they ready for a rude awakening as they launch into a world of work that's undergoing a seismic shift?
By 2030, over half of the jobs in the world are going to transition. They're going to disappear.
And Canadian institutions are not keeping up.
Higher education is actually preparing people for jobs of the past.
I don't understand why we're pushing more people into university and college so that they can graduate with debt and not be able to find a job.
Those lucky enough to find employment are often overqualified for the jobs they're forced to accept.
Serving has no future. It's a dead end.
Jobless and underemployed young people today can mean a bankrupt Canada tomorrow.
Canada will be in the decline because future wealth is built on people's skills, on the skills of the population.
While the crisis deepens, the generation in power only makes things worse.
How did this happen that boomers became the architects of a scorched earth public policy for the next generation? Are we not supposed to be stewards for the next generation?
We have an entire nation of highly educated, underemployed, creative people who are starting to kind of feel like they were sold a fraud.
In Canada, the recession has eased for many, but not for young people. Youth unemployment is double the general population, just under 15%. Compared to 4 years ago, there are 250,000 fewer young people with jobs. Economist Francis Fong reports on economic and social issues for TD Bank. His recent report, The Plight of Younger Workers, paints a brutal picture.
It's always the case that youth face the worst of it. They bear the brunt of it. And it's the simple fact that they are always the most vulnerable. They're the ones with the least experience, the least skills, so they're always the first ones to get let go.
So what that means is we are sidelining a very large group of people on whom we're going to be very reliant in the next 20 years. So the question becomes, is the biggest economic and fiscal drag facing Canada's future the elderly, or the fact that we're not using the potential of these young people?
I expected by the time I was an adult that I would own my own apartment, that I would have a job where I wore high heels and business suits. I don't know.
29-year-old Azaria Bata graduated 4 years ago with a degree in urban geography, planning on a career helping build greener cities. She landed a few temporary contracts, like Vancouver's Bike to Work Week, but nothing she could rely on long-term.
At the moment, I'm working as a server in a Japanese restaurant.
The restaurant is close to the University of British Columbia, and it's largely staffed with university grads. Tessa has a degree in international relations with a minor in Spanish. Katrina, a history degree with a minor in international relations. Alexandra, a BA in modern European studies and history. This crew is among the growing number of young people who are clearly underemployed in jobs that don't require a degree, turning their investment in higher education into pointless debt and marooning them at a dead end.
The service industry is always referred to as a trap because the money that you make there is comparable to a really good job. It's a dead end. Serving has no future, but you get kind of stuck on the road.
Canada has one of the highest graduate underemployment rates in all of the OECD countries. A Canadian Policy Research Network's report estimates that 1 in 3 college and university grads between the ages of 25 and 29 end up in low-skilled jobs.
Aaron Lawrence.
In the not-too-distant past, a degree was virtually a guarantee of a secure full-time job. Not anymore.
In fact, we're sort of facing this issue that we like to call education inflation, in which everybody in the labor market these days has some form of post-secondary education.
There was this kind of assumption that everybody has a B, A, or S. It's just like another step in like your high school education. Like it doesn't mean anything.
The degree is worth less, but tuition has skyrocketed, and students are racking up major debt to pay for it. 60% of students graduate in the hole. The average debt, $27,000. Students and grads often turn to online career sites like Talent Egg that connect them with employers across the country.
As a student graduating into the workplace, the second that you have left campus, you're almost like, I think of it as like a car on the lot. So a car on the lot, let's say, is worth $40,000. The second it's driven off the lot, it's worth $20,000. And that's the same, and that's how I see students that are transitioning from school to work. They're, while they're still in school, it's almost like they're employed. They're doing something. They're students. The second they're not, they become unemployed. And we all know how much harder it is to find a job when you're unemployed.
So I framed my $30,000 piece of paper so I can put it up in my room and show everybody that I graduated and I got a degree.
When 24-year-old Andrew Karam graduated as a civil engineer, he fully expected to land a job that would pay $50,000 a year. After all, his is no general arts degree. His education trained him in a profession. But 1 year later, Andrew's still looking.
This one's got 1 to 2 years experience, but don't even have that.
Andrew sent out more than 100 resumes. And even has his mother handing them out to clients.
I already gave a couple of them out. I don't know if they called you. Did they call you? No. Nobody?
That's it. Couldn't find a job. I got 2 interviews in about 8 months, so not many interviews.
For now, Andrew makes money working in construction with his dad.
My dad lectures me all the time. Did you find a job yet? Did you get a job? Did you get a job? They're always on my case.
The story that young people have been told is that if you do the right things, if you go to school, get a university education, you will be rewarded with the trappings of a comfortable middle-class life. I think in many ways, young people who are graduating now feel as though they have a whole team behind them. And if they don't succeed, they're letting down the team.
My parents are in constant worry about me. Like, it's so much pressure, and it's not like they're disappointed with me. They just are like, why aren't you a star?
But parents' expectations and youthful dreams of big salaries and fast promotions crash head-on into the new reality. A workplace increasingly shaped by globalization and automation. Companies fixated on the bottom line are outsourcing or getting computers to do the work.
In fact, a lot of employers are using the opportunity of this anxiety that's generally out there and creating this 2-tier environment where older workers may be red circled, you're fine until you retire. But the young'uns that we're bringing along to replace you, they will have lower wages, lower benefits, lower pensions. We haven't seen anything like this in almost 100 years, when bosses are asking people to take less money when they're already profitable.
By 2030, I actually think that over half of the jobs in the world are going to transition. They're going to disappear.
A former engineer and designer for IBM, Thomas Fry now spends his time analyzing trends.
As we create these new automations, it's eliminating 10,000 jobs at a time. It's happening with greater frequency than ever in the past.
Like cars that drive themselves. No longer science fiction, they're already on the road. In the not-too-distant future, there go taxi drivers, bus drivers, truck drivers, even pizza delivery guys. White-collar jobs aren't safe either. Lawyers are being replaced by software that can analyze legal documents. Robots can fill prescriptions and replace pharmacists.
As a consequence, we're going to have to figure out ways of building new jobs, creating new jobs faster than ever before.
If you think that the internet and social media will create those jobs, think again. They generate wealth, no doubt, but they do not create many jobs. Here's a shocker. If you gathered together all the employees of Facebook, Twitter, Groupon, and LinkedIn, you could easily fit them all into Madison Square Garden. These companies are collectively valued at close to $80 billion, yet they employ fewer than 20,000 people worldwide. So for young people trying to get a toehold in the economy, the pool of jobs is drying up. And what remains are not the full-time secure jobs of the past.
So in fact, when you take a look at what kind of jobs these young people are getting, because young people are getting some jobs, the vast majority of them are temporary. So temporary contracts, casual work, seasonal work, certainly nothing that is leading to a full-time career.
This is no short-term economic blip. It's a new business model where part-time and temporary work is the new normal.
There's a lot of young people today that are looking for a full-time job, but that's a different world than what we're actually living in. The average person that turns 30 years old has had 11 different jobs. My prediction is that in just 10 years, the average person that turns 30 years old will have worked between 200 to 300 different projects. We're becoming a much more project-based society.
And for the first time in history, young people are competing for those projects and jobs with their parents' generation, boomers who are delaying retirement.
Back in the 70s and the 80s, you would never have expected to compete with someone who was 68 for the same job. You know, these people have 40 years of work experience on you, management experience, you know, probably some more schooling, but they're competing for the same job. That's very unique. We did not see that competitive pressure being faced by any other cohort of young people.
Coming up, does higher education actually lower your chances of finding a job?
An employer is less likely to hire them because they have higher salary expectations, and of course they do. They have more debt, they have more education, of course they're expecting more. They have no work experience.
And next, a Canadian university that guarantees grads a job.
Every parent I've talked to has said, oh, I want my child in that program. Every single parent.
A handful of Canadian universities are making accountability to their students a priority. The University of Regina is the first in Canada to guarantee that grads will find a job related to their degree.
The number one reason students come to university in today's society, and the number one motivation for parents, is for their child to get a successful career. We can't ignore that.
If within 6 months University of Regina grads don't find a job in their chosen field, they can come back for another year to hone their skills for a better fit into the labor market. And this extra year is free. How can the university make such a guarantee? They're building on 4 decades of success, a co-op program in which students get hands-on job experience while going to school.
Our students earn $8.3 million a year. They can pay their university all of their costs through their co-op program.
The U of Regina Guarantee takes the co-op program a giant step further by combining the work experience with other programs focused on helping students find work. Each student is assigned a career counselor, and they're required to take workshops in resume writing, interview skills, and networking. From day one, the focus is not on getting an abstract education, but on stepping out of school into a career.
Good, come on in. So, how's it going?
Good, how you doing? The switch to engineering is doing you well?
Oh yeah, it's doing awesome.
General Sciences student Ryan Clark could have been heading toward post-grad underemployment. Taking part in the Guarantee program convinced him to switch to environmental engineering with much better job prospects. It's already landed him a summer job.
I've gotten a job to work for Sask Environment, just fly in a helicopter to take water samples. That, for me, is the dream job. That is really something I could make a career out of. It's something I really enjoy doing.
The UR Guarantee has only been in place for 3 years, so it's not yet been truly tested. But confidence is high because the Guarantee is building on that already proven co-op program.
Our students get jobs. The last survey showed that 97% of our students got employment. So, you know, that's a very positive story.
Compare the Regina experience with what's offered, or not, at most universities.
I felt like it was a huge loss out of my university experience, not being coached into like what our degrees would actually translate to in like a real-time job.
Why are so many universities ignoring the day after graduation?
These institutions are not in any way incentivized to help students figure out their career. That is not the goal of a university, especially a research university, which are in a lot of cases the most highly regarded among the schools across the country. But the expectations of employers have changed, and either universities and colleges need to step up and include career education and preparation as part of their curriculum, or we need to stop funneling so many students through this program that then leaves them with debt and unemployment on the other side.
In Canada, we don't actually know how many students are being funneled through universities in any given field of study. That's because there's no national strategy for post-secondary education that requires universities to gather that kind of information and then share it with each other.
They don't calculate the number of graduates in the same way in any particular program from university to university. We don't actually know in Canada how many history graduates we have in any particular year. We don't know how many people dropped out of sociology last year across Canada. So how can universities separately be responsive to the needs of the labor market if they don't even know what's happening across the country in any particular field? So no wonder the poor learner is stuck there thinking that the university is just trying to get bums in seats, because if there's no strategy, if there are no goals, then however good the people are within those institutions, they won't produce what the country needs.
Or they'll produce too much of what the country doesn't need. The province of Ontario has the worst oversupply of teachers in the country, yet universities continue to turn them out. For the past decade, the Ontario College of Teachers has been tracking newly certified grads. It's not a pretty picture. Today, 1 year after graduating, how many new teachers are either unemployed or underemployed? 67%.
Fully 1 in 3 of the new teachers found no teaching work at all, and they could not find even daily supply teaching.
Thank you for coming today.
Teachers Union President George Taylor regularly meets with young, underemployed teachers. Dan's been substituting for 9 years, while juggling other jobs to make ends meet.
I have done tutoring, but I also deliver pizzas. I find that when I see people I haven't seen in a while and they ask what I'm doing and I say, oh, I'm still supply teaching, I'm embarrassed because you're still doing that after all this time. You haven't got a full-time job. And
Marie has also been on call for almost a decade.
I think the colleges have a lot to blame that they're accepting so many education students when they know the jobs aren't there, and then there's overflow from 10 years and people that have come back to the profession as well in that time.
Having coffee at a nearby table, one of those people, a retired teacher who's still in the classroom. Paul Hoskin retired 13 years ago, but he's been substitute teaching ever since.
At my age, I still feel good, I still feel energized, and I feel more energized when I'm with kids.
Retired teachers double dipping is often blamed for the teacher job shortage. But even if all the retirees stepped out of the classroom tomorrow, it wouldn't solve the oversupply problem.
new teachers would still be spending quite a number of years before they get regular teaching positions because the overall glut is so large now.
Ontario colleges and universities pump out about 8,000 teachers a year. Add to that 3,000 more who train out of province. That's 11,000 new teachers, with only some 4,600 retiring annually. That's bad math, even with some small corrections currently underway.
We're in the third year of a reduction of about 1,000 places in our faculties of education, and the province is talking about much more significant reductions.
While governments and schools talk about reductions, a generation of young would-be teachers is being sidelined.
I feel badly in a sense for young teachers who want to teach. But I would say to that young person, before you spend thousands of dollars enrolling in a teacher's college or faculty of education, look at job opportunities and realistically ask yourself, am I going to get a job?
Across the country, there are too few jobs for too many teachers. But in other sectors of the economy, employers say they can't find enough skilled workers.
Well, a lot of it is a mismatch in the kinds of skills, abilities, and knowledge that companies need and the kinds of skills, knowledge, and abilities that people have.
Communitech is a hub for 800 technology companies in Waterloo, Ontario, Silicon North. Companies here could easily employ 1,000 or more people, but they have to be the right people.
What companies are looking for is technology, application developers, computer engineers, software engineers, but there's also a need for things that are more of an intersection of different types of skills. So it's those intersections between science, technology, and business, between arts and technology.
So all these grads in general arts and sciences would be more likely to find work if their education included technology skills. But young people don't necessarily know this because they don't have access to labor market information that tells them what jobs are in demand.
In an ideal world, a learner will have all of the information about the labor market in terms of what the trends will be, where employment will be, what sectors they will be in.
Hard to do in Canada, where the federal government relies on industry-led sector councils made up of business, labor, and educators to provide vital labor market information.
The federal government financially supports the sector councils on a project-by-project basis if it's something that they've applied for that's going to meet our objectives of gathering